In a quiet village just outside Kumasi, where dusty roads curved between mud houses and mango trees leaned lazily toward the sun, lived a grandmother named Abena Mensa. Most people simply called her Ama. She was small in stature, with deep lines across her face that told stories of decades filled with both laughter and loss. Her back had begun to bend with age, but her spirit stood straighter than anyone else's in the village. When her daughter passed away suddenly after a brief illness, Ama's world shifted overnight. Grief did not knock politely. It crashed into her life and left her holding 3 frightened children who did not fully understand why their mother was no longer coming home. Ama was 62 when she became a mother again. The house that once felt modest but manageable now felt heavy with responsibility. There were school uniforms to wash, meals to prepare, tears to wipe, and questions she could barely answer herself. The first night after the funeral, when the children finally fell asleep from exhaustion, Ama sat on the edge of her wooden bed and allowed herself to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet tears that slipped down her cheeks and disappeared into her faded cloth. She cried for her daughter. She cried for the future. Then she wiped her face, stood up, and whispered, "Tomorrow we begin again," and she meant it. Every morning, long before the roosters crowed, Ama wrapped her scarf tightly around her gray hair and stepped into the cool darkness. She walked nearly 5 kilometers to the market, carrying a wide metal bowl of vegetables balanced carefully on her head. Tomatoes, garden eggs, peppers, whatever she could gather or buy cheaply to resell. The road was uneven and rocky, but she walked it as if it were a sacred path. Each step was a prayer for strength. Some days were good. On those days, she returned home with a little extra money, enough to buy fish or soap. The children would run to her, helping her lower the bowl from her head, their faces lighting up when they saw what she brought. Other days were cruel. Rain would scatter customers, or prices would drop unexpectedly. She would sit behind her small wooden stall for hours, watching others sell faster than she could. On those days, she packed up slowly, hiding her disappointment. But she never came home empty-handed in spirit. At night, after cooking a simple meal of rice or yam, she would gather the children close and ask about school. She listened carefully, nodding as they spoke about lessons, friends, and dreams. She insisted they complete their homework, even when the kerosene lamp flickered and smoke filled the room. "Education," she would say softly, "is your road out of struggle." When the children slept, Ama would step outside and sit on a low wooden bench. The moonlight revealed the exhaustion she refused to show during the day. She rubbed her aching knees and looked up at the sky. "God, give me strength," she would whisper. "Just enough for tomorrow." She did not ask for riches. She did not ask for an easy life. Only strength. Weeks turned into months. Her hands grew rougher from carrying loads. Her feet developed blisters that healed and returned again. Yet each morning, she woke the children with a smile. She braided her granddaughter's hair carefully, straightened collars, and reminded them to be respectful and brave. Inside, the grief never fully left her. Sometimes she would catch herself staring at her daughter's old photograph hanging on the wall. The resemblance in the children's faces made her heart ache. But instead of breaking, that ache became fuel. Ama understood something powerful. Pain can either bury you or build you. She chose to let it build her. Neighbors often wondered how she managed without complaining. They did not see the nights she skipped meals so the children could eat more. They did not see her mending torn clothes late into the night so the children would not feel ashamed at school. They saw only her steady walk each morning and her calm smile each evening. What they did not realize was that her strength was not the absence of fear or sadness. It was the decision to keep moving despite them. In that small village outside Kumasi, Ama became something extraordinary without ever intending to. She became proof that love can be louder than loss, that responsibility can awaken hidden courage, that a grandmother's heart can stretch wide enough to carry the weight of 3 futures. And every sunrise that found her tying her scarf again was not just another day of survival. It was another quiet victory. One afternoon, the heat hung heavy over the village, pressing against the rooftops and slowing even the wind. Amma was sorting peppers outside her house when she saw Kofi walking down the road earlier than usual. His steps were slower than normal, and his shoulders slumped in a way that made her heart tighten immediately. He was barefoot, holding his worn-out sandals in one hand. Even from a distance, she could sense something was wrong. "Kofi," she called gently, rising to her feet. He did not answer at first. When he finally reached her, he kept his eyes on the ground. His voice was small. "Grandma, they sent me home." The words felt like a stone dropping into her chest. He explained between pauses that his school fees had not been paid. The teacher had told him to return only when the balance was cleared. Some classmates had stared. A few had whispered. The embarrassment burned more than the hot sun above him. Amma listened quietly. She did not interrupt. She did not curse the teacher. She did not complain about life. She simply placed her wrinkled hand on his shoulder and squeezed gently. "Go inside," she told him softly. "Wash your face." When he disappeared into the house, Amma stood still for a long moment. The market had been slow that week. Food prices had risen. She had already stretched every coin as far as it could go. There was nothing left hidden in tins or cloth corners. Nothing except her gold earrings. They were small and slightly worn, a gift from her late husband decades ago. She had kept them safe even during the hardest seasons of her life. They were more than jewelry. They were memory. They were love. They were the last physical reminder of a man who once held her hand and promised they would build a future together. That evening, after the children slept, Amma opened the small wooden box beneath her bed. She lifted the earrings carefully, holding them in her palm. For a moment, tears filled her eyes. She remembered her wedding day. She remembered laughter. She remembered a life that felt easier. Then she closed her fingers around the gold. The next morning, she walked not to the vegetable market, but to a gold buyer in the next town. The price he offered was lower than she hoped, but she did not argue long. She accepted the money, folded it carefully into her cloth, and went straight to the school.